I want to show an example of courage that we needed more of back in July 2020 when there was this knee-jerk reaction to Trump to close schools, right? This courage that we needed more of when these mandates continued with no off-ramps. The courage we needed when the government indefinitely shut down people's businesses. And so there's a lieutenant colonel, make this bigger. So this is put out by his wife. And she says, after 18 years of active duty service in the U.S. Army, in the U.S. Army, my lieutenant colonel husband has resigned. He's walking away from all he's worked for and believed in since he was an ROTC kid at UGA. He's walking away from his retirement, right? Because that's one of the big benefits of working in government is you get this nice retirement. And he's 19 years in, so he's almost there, whether it's 20 or 25 years. And he's like, it's not worth it. And so this is his resignation letter. The beginning part is just kind of administrative. It just says this is who he is, and he's not in any sort of trouble right now. He's done his active duty service, and now this is where he's resigning and why. And so these are the reasons that he gives. He says, first and foremost, I am incapable of subjecting myself to the unlawful, unethical, immoral, and tyrannical order to sit still and allow a serum to be injected into my flesh against my will and better judgment. It is impossible for this so-called vaccine to have been studied adequately to determine the long-term effects. It simply has not existed enough time, and any claim otherwise is blatantly ignorant and likely an outright lie driven by negligent political agenda. Furthermore, ample studies show that naturally derived immunity based on exposure to the virus offers far superior protection to the mandated vaccine. That is a fact. Next, I cannot and will not contribute to the fall of this great nation and its people, those very Americans whom I swore to protect the liberty of all at all cost. The values that our nation was founded on, has lived by and thrived under, have been adequately decimated by the current presidential administration and the leadership of the military, to include the Army. We are watching the fall of liberty at this moment. Governors and mayors forcibly locking down millions of Americans, restricting them from unalienable rights to pursue happiness, forcing them out of their jobs and their ability to participate in the most basic. I thought it would go to the next page. Fundamental right life offers because their personal beliefs and values. These values that we service members offer our very lives to protect and are now being used as tools to boost the numbers of vaccinated people in order to further distance and alienate those knowing the personal risk of disease, having freely decided to remain unvaccinated. Right. And so this is how I also feel as a teacher now, not to necessarily compare myself to a service member and the sacrifice that they make, but teaching is a public service, right? I give my life to that work, and for them to just come and say, well, now for you to keep this job, you have to take this thing. And if you don't do it, then you must not care. Well, quite the opposite. I care so much. That is why I am doing this. This is the most important lesson I could ever teach my students, because this isn't just some political belief. This really is striking at a fundamental aspect of how we live, of where our rights are derived from. It's not from the government. I mean, sure, you're a public servant. There is a piece of you give up. You give up, and a lot of times, the potential to make a higher salary, though on the back end, city workers and federal workers and state workers do really well with the pensions and the benefits, right? But if you go private sector in a lot of these things, you can make good money or become an entrepreneur, whatever, what have you. No, administrators cap out at a few $100,000, things like that. So you give up a lot. And then they just turn around and they say, you have to do what we say. It's like we're an experiment, like how they're holding our kids hostage. It's just so it's so blatant and it's so obvious at this point. We need more people like this US lieutenant, army lieutenant, to stand up, to be willing to put it all on the line. He's 19 years in. He's almost there to that sweet retirement. And he said, no, this is one of the most important things I can do for my country. So he just goes on to talk more about what he sees as this administration is lacking, how he sees the different leadership of the army being infiltrated by people who don't have the best interests of this country at heart. And again, the last thing here, I'll put this up for the last paragraph. I will continue my service to this great nation and uphold the Constitution of the United States, but I feel I can no longer do this while serving the Army. As it is my belief the U.S. military is currently being used to the contrary, neither serving this great nation nor upholding the Constitution. I would like nothing more than to continue in the Army to reach my 20 years of active federal service and retire with my pension. So 1 year away, less than 1 year away. However, instead, I will join those who have served before me in pledging my life, my fortune, my sacred honor to continue resisting the eternal and ever mutable forms of oppression and tyranny, both from enemies outside our nation's borders and those within. And this to me is what I think about when I'm holding the line. Right? Again, I'm not trying to compare teaching to what it takes to be in the military, but the idea of giving back, right? The idea of you're working and you have this pension and you're giving that all up by saying no. There's no amount of money that you can pay me to force me to put something in my body that I don't want to put in. That's never been a job in my job before, right? Don't just come along and mandate new things that you inject into yourself. It was never something to begin with, right? So we need more people like this guy to stand up. Thanks for checking out this video. Make sure you've smashed that like button and leave me a comment down below. And while you're down there, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos, which you can watch more of by clicking here, or for even more, go to teachingliberty.org and join our community today.